A janitor is about to leave the school when he hears a loud bang inside one of the rooms. When he checks, he finds a student struggling to breathe. He tries to call for help, but another girl with blood-stained hands shows up and warns him to run. A few days earlier, a high schooler named Riley and her dad Chris, who works as an English teacher, have just moved to a new town. Today is their first day at the new school. One of the students, Kyla, loves photography and takes candid shots for the yearbook until she notices the new English teacher. She gets interrupted by another student, Trisha, who asks for a picture. Trisha also notices the teacher and whispers how she wants a piece of him, smirking as she brags she can have him wrapped around her finger in just 2 days. During Chris' class, Kyla can't stop staring at their attractive new teacher, but so is Trisha. She starts flirting with Chris, making Kyla roll her eyes. After class, Kyla heads to the computer room and runs into Riley. They introduce themselves and hit it off after realizing they're both into art. That's when Kyla learns Riley is the teacher's daughter. Right away, she asks if she can visit her house sometime to study English together. Kyla is already fixated on Chris, even snapping a secret photo of him later in the parking lot. That evening, Kyla finds out her mom Jess has a date with a man she met at the grocery store. While Jess gets ready, Kyla can't stop daydreaming about Chris. She later visits Riley's house, where they end up talking about Riley's mom. Riley shares that her mother cheated on Chris for years, which caused their breakup. Kyla also tells her that her dad walked out when she was 6. They bond over their broken families. While Riley is in the bathroom, Kyla sneaks into Chris' room and gently runs her hand across his bed. The next day in class, Trisha continues to flirt with the teacher. Soon she learns Riley is Chris' daughter and starts hanging out with her. She warns Riley not to get close to Kyla and even invites her shopping. Kyla feels upset seeing them together. When Trisha leaves, she warns Riley to stay away from her, saying Trisha is too hung up on Chris. She explains how Trisha once became obsessed with a history teacher, which ended with him losing his job. That night, Kyla calls Riley, casually asking about her birthday, but the talk soon shifts to Chris. Kyla asks if her dad often gets students crushing on him like Trisha. Riley laughs and says even if he does, it doesn't matter because he's got strong principles, and he's already dating someone he met at the store. That's when Kyla realizes her mom's new date is Riley's dad. Just then, Chris arrives at their house to pick Jess up. Jess had no idea Chris was Kyla's teacher and asks if Kyla is fine with it. Kyla pretends she is. As they're leaving, Kyla accidentally spills water on Chris. Since he doesn't have another shirt, Kyla suggests they stay in and cook instead, even offering to help. During dinner, Kyla texts Riley about how strange it is their parents are now dating. She tries to keep Chris and Jess from getting too close, so when they begin kissing, Kyla suddenly screams from her room. She rushes downstairs, saying someone was spying through her window while she was changing. Chris goes out to check but finds no one. Kyla says she'll feel safer staying near them, making sure nothing romantic happens between Chris and her mom. She thanks Chris for keeping them safe, and he says he can stay the night since Riley is out with Trisha. The next morning, Kyla is stunned to find Chris using her shower, and when she closes the door, she can't help but smile to herself. After breakfast, Chris offers her a ride to school, and they stop by his house to pick up Riley. He apologizes for the shower incident, but Kyla's playful reply leaves him uneasy. When Riley gets in the car, she notices the strange silence between them. After class, Riley goes to the school's darkroom looking for her friend. Kyla suddenly lashes out, confronting her for hanging out with Trisha after she had warned her not to. She insists Trisha is only pretending to be her friend to get closer to her dad. Riley fires back, saying Trisha told her it was actually Kyla who had been too close with the history teacher. This makes Kyla furious. She confronts Trisha directly and warns her to stay away from Riley. That night, Kyla takes a few bold selfies, and to make herself look like the victim, she stuffs them into her own locker. She acts as if someone humiliated her and uses the chance to talk to Chris. The next day, Riley and Kyla patch things up. Kyla admits she really was the one involved with the history teacher, saying he once made her feel important. But then she lies, claiming she took those photos for him and that Trisha must have stolen them and spread them around. Riley tells her she didn't deserve that and comforts her. That evening, Chris comes over for another date with Jess. While he's in the bathroom, Kyla notices his phone lighting up with a flood of daring and inappropriate messages from Trisha. She shows them to her mom, who later confronts Chris about it. Chris insists he has never texted a student, but Jess doesn't believe him and ends things on the spot. Kyla stays in her room, quietly pleased with the outcome. A while later, Chris sits heartbroken in his car when Kyla suddenly comes outside. She slips into the passenger seat and listens as he explains his side. Then she begins getting touchy, and soon she climbs onto his lap and kisses him. Chris fails to push her away, and afterward, Kyla goes back to her room, looking satisfied. She picks up her phone, revealing it was her who had been sending those fake texts, pretending to be Trisha. The next day at school, when Trisha flirts with Chris again, Kyla interrupts by returning his jacket. Just then, school officials arrive and expel Trisha after finding a broken phone in her locker with the printed pictures of Kyla. That night, Riley celebrates her 18th birthday. Kyla gives her a gift, but it's clear she's more interested in finding Chris. She sneaks into his room unnoticed and starts giving him a massage. Chris, still emotionally fragile, listens as Kyla offers to lift his spirits. Like before, he fails to stop her advances, and they end up in bed. Moments later, Riley walks in and sees everything. Horrified, she runs out. Chris rushes after her, and they argue in front of everyone at the party. Riley storms away, and when Chris tries to follow, Kyla stops him, saying the house is now theirs. But Chris rejects her, saying his daughter means more to him. This sparks a deep jealousy in Kyla toward Riley. The next day at school, Chris finally sees Riley, but she refuses to speak with him. Instead, she reaches out to Jess and tells her everything about Kyla and her dad. Jess storms into the school, slaps Chris several times, and drags Kyla home. While confronting her daughter, Jess realizes Kyla must have lied about Trisha. Later, Chris apologizes to Riley, admitting how broken he became when her mother left. Riley eventually forgives him, and they reconcile. Meanwhile, Kyla calls Trisha and asks to meet. When they do, Kyla tries to provoke Trisha into hitting her. But when Trisha refuses, Kyla starts hurting herself, even breaking her own fingers in madness. Chris and Riley, who just arrive in their car, hear the screams and rush to help. Kyla lies to Chris, saying Trisha was the one who broke her fingers. Riley quickly calls 911, and the police arrest Trisha. When Jess sees her daughter's injuries, she starts to believe again that maybe Kyla wasn't lying about Trisha after all. A while later, Riley visits Kyla in the hospital to tell her she still hasn't forgiven her, and that Chris no longer wants to see her. Even so, Kyla asks for one last favor. She wants Riley to take her place as the camera operator for the girls' volleyball team, and for the sake of the team, Riley agrees. Kyla also begs for one last chance to say goodbye to Chris. But when he comes into the room, Kyla changes her tone. She says that now Jess and Riley believe nothing is going on between them. No one will stand in their way anymore. Chris is unsettled by how far her obsession has gone, so he tells her he doesn't feel the same. He adds that he plans to pack up and leave his job to finally put an end to all of this. Chris then heads to the school and calls Riley to help him clear out his classroom. But as Riley walks through the hallway, the lights suddenly shut off. Kyla has escaped from the hospital and was waiting for her. She jumps out and stabs Riley with a surgical blade. Kyla then steps into Chris' classroom, holds the knife to his neck, and threatens him while trying to get close. When Chris realizes what she's done to Riley, he shoves her away and tries to escape, but Kyla kicks him, making him slam his head on the desk. That was the loud thud the janitor heard earlier. Kyla drags Chris' unconscious body off, and when the janitor arrives, he finds her alone. As he runs to get help, the bloodied Riley appears and tells him to run. But it's already too late. Kyla shows up and slashes the janitor's throat. She chases Riley through the school until she finally catches her. Riley manages to fight back, knocking Kyla down and turning the tables. Rescue soon arrives, and both Riley and Kyla are rushed to the hospital. Months later, Chris and Riley have moved to a new town. Chris is ready to start teaching again, and Riley is looking forward to her first day of college. But as she drives off, a hooded figure steps out from the shadows, hinting that Kyla is still out there, and this story may not be over.